Imagine being so good that your biggest rivals stand up and applaud you. Imagine making defenders laugh after you humiliate them. Imagine winning the Ballon d'Or and still smiling like a kid in the streets of Brazil. This is not a story about perfection. This is a story about magic. And his name was Ronaldinho. There are players who win titles. There are players who break records. And then, once in a generation, there is a player who changes how the game feels. Ronaldinho was that player. At a time when football was becoming faster, stronger, more tactical, he brought something different. Freedom. He played as if the stadium was a playground. As if pressure did not exist. As if defenders were simply part of the performance. When he touched the ball, crowds leaned forward. Not because they expected efficiency, but because they expected something impossible. He didn't just score goals. He created moments. Moments that made rivals applaud. Moments that made teammates believe. Moments that made children run outside and try to copy him. This is not just a story about a footballer. This is a story about why we fall in love with the game. Ronaldinho was born in Porto Alegre, Brazil. Football wasn't just something he played. It was part of who he was. His father had played professionally. His brother was already chasing a career. The ball was always there. In the house. In the yard. On the streets. Then, at just 8 years old, his world changed. His father passed away. That kind of loss can break a child. It can silence a dream. But for Ronaldinho, it did something different. It made football deeper. More personal. More meaningful. Every touch of the ball felt connected to something bigger. On the streets, on the sand, on rough concrete courts, he wasn't practicing drills. He was creating. Improvising. Smiling. Learning rhythm instead of rules. And without realizing it, he was building something rare. A style that could not be copied. A joy that could not be coached. At Grêmio, Ronaldinho was no longer just a talented kid. He was becoming a symbol of Brazilian flair. At a time when football was becoming more tactical, more physical, more structured, he represented something unpredictable. Brazil has always produced artists. But Ronaldinho felt different. He wasn't just skillful. He was fearless. He attempted things in matches that most players wouldn't even try in training. Stepovers in tight spaces. Backheel passes under pressure. Dribbles that made defenders freeze. And when he embarrassed someone, he didn't stare. He smiled. That smile changed the energy of the game. Soon, Brazil's national team called. In the 2002 World Cup, the world truly noticed him. Against England, from an impossible angle, he scored a free kick that shocked David Seaman and stunned an entire stadium. Was it a cross? Was it a shot? Only he knows. But Brazil lifted the trophy. And Ronaldinho became a world champion. He was still young. Still raw. Still smiling. And Europe was ready to pay attention. Paris Saint-Germain signed him. France gave him a bigger stage. But even there, it felt like he was holding back something bigger. He wasn't meant to shine quietly. He was meant to explode. Barcelona was about to change everything. When Ronaldinho arrived in Barcelona in 2003, the club was not the giant we know today. They were rebuilding. Searching for identity. Searching for a belief. Real Madrid had the Galacticos. Barcelona had uncertainty. Then came the smile. Ronaldinho didn't just improve results. He changed the culture. Training sessions became lighter. Confidence returned. Fans felt hope again. There is something powerful about joy and leadership. And even though he was young, Ronaldinho led with emotion. He played as if pressure did not exist. As if expectations were irrelevant. He turned defenders into spectators. He made impossible passes look casual. He made children in the stands believe they could do the same. And then came the night in Madrid. The Santiago Bernabeu. A hostile crowd. A fierce rivalry. Ronaldinho scored once. Then again. Each goal more devastating than the last. And something unthinkable happened. Real Madrid supporters stood up. They applauded. In one of football's fiercest rivalries, respect overpowered hatred. That moment defined his greatness. Not because he scored. But because he transcended rivalry. In 2005, he won the Ballon d'Or. In 2006, he lifted the Champions League. He was officially the best player in the world. But he never behaved like someone chasing history. He behaved like someone enjoying the moment. Here is the difficult truth. Ronaldinho's peak burned brighter than most. But it burned shorter. While other legends built careers on obsession, Ronaldinho built his on freedom. Cristiano Ronaldo studied his body like a scientist. Lionel Messi perfected efficiency. Others trained relentlessly, endlessly. Ronaldinho trained too. But he also lived. Music filled his evenings. Friends surrounded him. Celebrations were frequent. He chose happiness over structure. And in football, that choice has consequences. Because joy gives you creativity. But discipline gives you longevity. Slowly, Barcelona began planning the future. A young Lionel Messi was rising. The club's style was evolving. The era was shifting. And the magician, for the first time, looked human. When Ronaldinho moved to AC Milan, many believed a new chapter would revive him. There were flashes. Brilliant assists. Moments of elegance. But something had changed. The explosiveness. The consistency. The hunger. He was no longer dominating matches. He was visiting them. Later, he returned to Brazil. At Atlético Mineiro, he lifted the Copa Libertadores. A reminder that the magic still existed. Even if it was not constant. But the world had already seen the peak. And then came one of the strangest headlines in football history. A passport issue in Paraguay. Detention. Photos of Ronaldinho smiling, even in custody. It felt surreal. From global icon to prison headlines. But even then, he didn't look angry. He didn't look broken. He looked calm. As if life, like football, was something to experience. Here's why Ronaldinho remains special. He did not maximize statistics. He did not dominate for 15 years. He did not obsess over perfection. But he changed perception. He reminded fans that football is not just strategy. It is imagination. He inspired children worldwide. Players copied his elastico. They copied his no-look passes. They copied his smile. Even Lionel Messi has said that Ronaldinho helped him adapt in Barcelona. That is legacy. Not numbers. Not medals. Influence. Some players are feared. Some are respected. Ronaldinho was loved. And love lasts longer than trophies. When people debate the greatest players of all time, they usually talk about numbers. Goals. Assists. Championships. Longevity. And in those debates, Ronaldinho's name sometimes appears with an asterisk. What if he had trained harder? What if he had stayed disciplined longer? What if he had extended his peak? But maybe that's the wrong question. Because Ronaldinho was never trying to win the argument. He was trying to enjoy the game. And that difference changes everything. Some players turn football into science. Measured. Optimized. Calculated. Ronaldinho turned football into art. Improvised. Emotional. Alive. When he played, you didn't feel like you were watching an athlete. You felt like you were watching imagination in motion. There are players who dominate opponents. There are players who dominate eras. Ronaldinho dominated feelings. He made rival fans applaud. He made defenders laugh in disbelief. He made teammates play with more freedom. And perhaps most importantly, he made an entire generation fall in love with football again. In schoolyards across the world, children didn't shout tactical instructions. They shouted, "Watch this." And they tried the elastico. That is influence. That is impact. Yes, his peak was shorter than others. Yes, his discipline was questioned. Yes, his career could have lasted longer at the very top. But not every legend is built to be a machine. Some are built to be a spark. A spark burns bright. It lights everything around it. And even after it fades, the warmth remains. Years from now, records will be broken. Statistics will be replaced. New superstars will rise. But when someone asks, who made football feel magical? There will always be one answer. Ronaldinho. Not because he was perfect. Not because he was obsessed. Not because he chased immortality. But because he played like the game belonged to joy. And in a world where football is increasingly tactical, increasingly physical, increasingly structured, that joy still feels rare. If you were lucky enough to watch him live, you remember the feeling. The unpredictability. The smile. The sense that something impossible was about to happen. And that feeling is something no statistic can measure.